Well, hello everyone, Mr. E here, and I am pleased to bring you today the HIVE SCUM class spotlight. We are going to be looking at everything about HIVE SCUM today, at least insofar as the actual class itself. I'll be reserving weapons for their own separate video on at least my channel. If you want to go see a brief overview of them, you can check out the video I just did for Fat Shark's channel. And if you're coming over here from there, welcome. I'm Mr. E. I do Darktide stuff, duh. You should subscribe either way if you're just seeing me for the first time. Help me reach Warhammer 40k subs, guys. We only have a little bit to go. And one more thing while I have your attention, another call to action. If you look in the description of the video, there is in fact a personalized link down there that will take you to the Steam store page. If you could click through there and then wishlist this on Steam, you don't have to intend to buy it. You don't even have to have Steam or even have to have the game necessarily. But if enough of you guys can do that, I can pick up a couple of extra keys for the HIVE SCUM that I can distribute to the community, and that would be awesome to be able to do that. So thank you so much for helping me, guys, and let's talk some scum. Today, as I said, we're going to be looking at just a brief overview of most of the stuff on the class, such as I'll start showing you the cosmetics right now, and then we're going to do a dive into the talent tree, and I really want to showcase all the abilities and all the talents and give you a feel for what you are going to be building with in just a couple days' time. So as you can see by these cosmetics here, we actually do have quite a few selections right off the rip with this class. I really like that they have these armor. First of all, this armor is fucking sick. They have different variations for each of the 4 cartels that you can represent in the game, which I think is a cool variation. And then we also get quite a number of different looks. This gives me hope that this class will have much less restrictions insofar as the amount of diverse cosmetics and perhaps even weapons they'll be able to create for it down the line, unlike what we have with our BDs, where our BDs launched as pretty much a fixed package. They were given the permissions to only create, 1 or 2 things for them, and then past that they were locked out. Now, we'll go over to the masteries here and we'll talk a little bit about weapons. Here are the 10 melee weapons available to this class. You can see those old favorites such as Tactical Axe, Combat Blade. Of course, these weapons go hard on this class, but you've got the new ones, the Shivs, the Crowbar, and the Bone Saw. As I mentioned a minute ago, I will be making a separate video that should be out either later today or tomorrow on these weapons specifically, showcasing all of the new stuff to this class. And then we're going to go over to the ranged weapons. There are 11 ranged weapons and 10 melee ones. This class obviously also has access to the braced auto gun, all of those bullet weapons that I've been talking about for a while. As soon as I suspect there might be a ganger coming, I was really hoping that they would do some emphasis on bullet style weapons. And although these weapons did not get any buffs with this patch, this class can make them very competitive. And I'll showcase that in some of my builds. Now we do have 3 exclusive weapons here as well, dual stub pistols, dual auto pistols, and the needle pistol, all of which have their own little intricacies. My favorite of all of these is the dual stub pistols, aka the dualies. These are fucking sick. Alright guys, well, with that being said, we can jump straight into the talent tree, and this is where the actual mechanics, the crazy part of the class will come into focus for you. And I'm just going to put the thesis statement right up top. This class is a glass cannon. I expressed that before, and many people expressed skepticism that, hey, how is this going to be any different than the Zealot? Well, for the Zealot, you know how on the Zealot, there's this whole top row up here that has a bunch of different ways you can regenerate your toughness, and how all of your abilities regenerate your toughness, and how all of your keystones regenerate your toughness? Well, this class has approximately 2 or 3 nodes in any given build on the tree that regenerate toughness at all in any way, shape, or form. And most of them have a lot of requirements to do it. This class, if you lose your toughness, you are going to be in a bad spot. You need to be dodging and evading almost every attack that you can. And just for a sample here is the toughness talent that I've chosen in this build, Precision Violence. Melee hits replenish 2% toughness, melee critical strike and weak spot hits give 4%, and critical weak spot strikes replenish 8%. So compare this to the Arbites, who getting a single staggering hit gives him 10%, getting a close range kill, either melee or range, gives him 10%, so hitting a single enemy, staggering them and killing them will give you 20% of your toughness. You need to critical headshot an enemy with a weapon in order to get 8% on this class. And that is even harder, obviously, because it just becomes, it becomes dangerous to be in melee range with enemies when you can't regenerate your toughness in the same way that our BB can. Now over here on the range side, we can get 5% toughness on range kill or 10% on elite or special. Compare this to what the veteran can do. The veteran has a talent called Out for Blood that gives you an additional 5% on any kill that you do, whether it's range or melee or grenade. And then they get a talent that if you kill an elite or a special, you get 10% flat and then an additional 20% over the next 10 seconds, triple this amount of toughness regeneration. So these classes, or the other classes, print toughness out of nowhere, and this is what keeps them so safe in combat, is they can take a hit and then they can regenerate that toughness and take another hit. This class will have to play cautiously and evasively in order to not take the hit in the first place, and then need to work to get it back. And you might be thinking, oh, well, something like gold toughness would go a long way here. Well, gold toughness doesn't regenerate your toughness for you. Once it's broken, you still need to regenerate that toughness and get back into the overcap. Gold toughness works very, very well for characters like Arbites. They can regenerate a lot of toughness, so they can be knocked out of that gold toughness overcap state, and then they can battle their way back into it very quickly. This class has to work for every single point of toughness that they will earn. And yeah, it is a very, very different dynamic. As opposed to, and hopefully, the combat footage here is keeping you entertained while I'm rambling, but as opposed to the early access footage I was able to record for the Arbites, it was very, very hard to solo maps with this character because you cannot self-sustain in the same way. You can do crazy, crazy damage, but you are a very fragile glass cannon in terms of soloing content. But with that being said, let's jump right in and let's showcase what this class has to offer. We have In Your Face up here, which is 25% range damage within 12.5 meters, and then it goes down to 10%. Really, really solid range damage. Sticky Hands here for some weapon swap speed, recoil, and spread reduction when you're firing from the hip or bracing. And we also get Tertium Welcome here, 15% melee damage on first enemy hit with each attack for single target damage, Precision Violence, which I just showcased, and Voice of Tertium, which I just showcased. Over here we got Speed Loader, 15% reload speed for 8 seconds on close range kill, which I'll be doing a lot. Then Moving Target, +1 effective dodges while wielding your ranged weapon. Over here, Float Like a Butterfly, 20% crit chance for 2 seconds on parry or successful dodge. So parries and dodges apply to this. I think the only weapon in this class that can parry is, in fact, the Katachan Devil's Claw sword, so that's pretty cool. We have down here Untouchable Threat Reduction, a threat reduction talent, which is pretty interesting, keeping those threats off of you. Obviously, this doesn't work when you're soloing, but it gives you 50% threat reduction, lasts for 3 seconds, stacks up to 4 times, and if you dodge, it refreshes the duration, so you can sprint into combat, and maybe enemies will be less likely to target you, and then you can dodge, and that will refresh it even when you're not sprinting. Over here, we've got ourselves Calling for a Timeout, 25% toughness damage reduction when, minus 25% toughness damage taken while reloading and for 2 seconds afterwards. That is actually better than toughness damage reduction because it stacks additively with that. But as I mentioned before, the crux of this class, the vulnerability of this class is not that it doesn't have toughness damage reduction or damage reduction. It has this in a couple of different places. The problem is when you do take that toughness damage, it is very hard to get it back. This does not help you getting it back. It's a good lump of defense though. Over here, we've got blackout grenades. Okay, so let's start to demonstrate these grenades. And guys, this is where I want to draw your attention to the quality of life feature, at least one of the ones that has been added with this patch that I am now aware of, which is that you can do this. Simply right click to unselect your Blitz ability, and now you can select any other Blitz ability, and it does not make you respec your entire tree. How fucking cool is that? Shut up, Stephanie. Okay, so we are going to throw this blackout grenade. These blackout grenades are little flashbangs that do this. Now, notably, that this is doing toxin damage to these enemies because of another talent I have slotted, but these are able to stun any target, such as Reapers. It'll knock them out of their animations and all that sort of stuff. They have 5 charges base, and they can gain every 20 close range kills generates an additional charge. Now, notably, kills are only claimed by killing blows. So for instance, if I got like 20 enemies around me and I threw one of these at my feet and I killed them all with it, these toxin deaths do not count towards that 20. Only kills like this count towards that 20. So that is very important to note, that direct damage is going to be the way that you replenish those. Now over here, we have Boombringer, the rocket launcher. Let's showcase this really quickly. The rocket launcher looks like this. We can kind of inspect it here. It says war, etc. Looks pretty cool. My problem with this rocket launcher is that it doesn't do all that much damage, although you can still apply the rockets to it. And I guess you could, what is that? I thought it made like a noise, but yeah, it does a pretty good amount of damage. But like, I feel personally that since a crack grenade can one-shot a crusher on Auric, the rocket launcher should also be able to do it. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me that this weapon doesn't quite have that much damage, and its blast radius isn't as tremendous as I would think either. So I'm hoping that this weapon gets a little bit of a buff to make it really compensate for the fact that it is a freaking rocket launcher after all, but a pretty visually impressive weapon, very fun to pull out in a pinch. And then we have the absolute best blitz on this class, which is Chem Grenade. This thing throws a grenade containing chem toxin, breaks open, and the contents spill out across an area when it explodes. So that looks like this. There you go. Okay, so enemies standing in this area will take that damage over time toxin effect, which is very, very effective, and look at how long it lasts on the ground. So if you are fighting in an area and you've got a massive horde of enemies, you draw them into here, you make them fight in it, and they take the ultimate punishment. Now, the thing that takes this and makes it go to the next level is that enemies that are affected by this effect will actually explode when they die to it, and that explosion will cascade. It will add more stacks of toxin to other enemies that are in the area as well, so they'll start to take increased toxin damage. And yeah, it just absolutely erases hordes. This is thanks to the interaction that it has with this node down here we'll talk about later on. But yeah, very, very potent grenade. I think it's definitely the one you'll want if you're a Havoc player, because you can wipe out an entire horde of metal even with no problem. Since chem toxin weapons have very, very good effectiveness against armor. As you can see here, like this enemy is not taking a small amount of damage at all, and with extra stacks added on from those explosions, it'll really erase them really quickly. Okay, so that's all of our grenades here. Let's check out our next stuff. Gang Tough, which everybody will pick up, 10% range damage and 10% toughness damage reduction. Then down here, we've got Slippery Customer. Very cool talent. While sliding, gain melee attack immunity, which means that, hey, you know, you are the only class now that when you're in melee with an enemy, you can shove them and then like sprint away and slide. A lot of classes, if you try to sprint in retreat from a enemy horde, you'll get hit in the back, right? This class cannot. And in fact, you can even style on enemies. If you got a crusher who's about to like overhead, he's chasing you with an overhead, hey, just slide into his feet like that, and he'll drop the overhead on you and you'll be immune. You certainly won't mess it up and die instantly, right? But yeah, it does make you immune to melee while it's going on, which is pretty cool. Right here in the middle, Nimble, a really good talent as well. Dodges extended by 25% and time considered dodging by 50%. So it extends your invulnerability frames, which is awesome. Makes you go a really, really long way. Because the length of your dodge increases the amount of acceleration you have, it also increases the length of distance that you can bullet slide. So like watch how far I can like really slide with this if I do that. It gets you a nice big long slide, and it's especially effective on back dodges. I might even out of dodges, and that's what it looks like. But like, yeah, you can make a lot of distance with this and also be invulnerable for a very, very long time, which is quite nice. But I think that Slippery Customer is what I prefer, at least when I'm going an aggressive build. If I'm going for a range build, I'm picking this because I'm dodging back a lot of times. Over here, we've got Regain Posture. I don't think this talent is very good. 5% stamina on successful dodge. We have so much stamina already. This class has an absurdly short stamina regeneration delay, meaning the amount of time that it takes to start regaining your stamina. Look at this. It's almost instant. And that means that we can do something like this where we're sprinting and we can slide and actually net positive stamina while we're sprinting and sliding. And that means we can dodge most, if not all, range attacks, depending on what blessings are on our range weapon. So this class doesn't have any problem maintaining its stamina. I think this is a waste of a talent, and I don't like that it's positioned here because it blocks you out from taking this node down here. Okay, right here we've got another weird one, like the wind, plus 15 sprint dodge angle. In addition, sprint dodging is enabled even when stamina is depleted. So basically what this is a very undervalued mechanic. I think some Zealot players are aware of it, but when you are sprinting perpendicular to an enemy, say that gunner over there was firing me, if I was sprinting perpendicular to him, he would actually have reduced accuracy against me because I am sprinting in such a manner. This enables me to turn my camera, to turn my gaze slightly more non-perpendicular towards him. I don't think it's like directly perpendicular, but it's somewhere in this range, so I can sprint at a zigzag and he would still have that aiming penalty against me. I don't think this is very good at all, and also you need to maintain stamina when this is going on, but I think this is just, again, such a useless node because the way that this class evades range damage is just constantly sprint sliding like this, and we won't worry about our stamina when we're sprint sliding constantly. So yeah, I think this is another dead node, and that is unfortunate. These two nodes right here that are both like D tier are right over top of Gunslinger, which means that you're going to have to take Jittery here if you want to get this Gunslinger improved aura. Jittery is 20% dodge recovery speed while stamina is above 80%. You know, this is okay, I guess. I would say it's like a C tier talent. I'm not really trying to do my tier list here, but this is very low efficacy in terms of like what it's actually going to give you. Dodge recovery speed is just the amount of time it takes from when you actually throw that dodge. You have this period of time where you're to consider dodging, and then you come out of it as you slow down, and then you can dodge again, right? So it makes it so that you can dodge very much 20% more rapidly and fill in those gaps. But it's not that much of an effect, and you won't really feel it as much as you would feel these two up here. Then we have our only actual like material damage node of this little area, which is cheap shots, 15% damage against enemies that are fully staggered. This is a very, very solid node here. The problem for this class is that it does not stagger enemies very well, but there are a couple of weapons such as the bone saw and the crowbar that do stagger, so this could be good for them. But this area right here, note that all these are almost all utility talents. I think that's a cool design for a class, is to have a lot of its power invested in its actual abilities and its weapons, but then to have a lot of the tree itself be utility and add flavor to the way the class is played. I just think that a lot of these flavor things that it's adding are incredibly, incredibly weak and useless, like these right here are. Okay, let's go on to our auras. We have some pretty base and boring auras such as Anarchist here, 5% crit chance for you and allies in coherency. Yeah, it is what it is. Actually, I'm going to redo my build while I'm looking at this right here. We can also do the same thing with our auras as we can, and our abilities, and I believe also our keystones as we can with the thing up there, or with the blitzes up there. We can just reslot these. So this gives us 5% crit chance. You know what? I'm not gonna say that I don't want 5% crit chance. It's very good. This class is the king of crits. It can easily hit 100% crit, so that's pretty nice for the whole team to be able to share that. It's just kind of uninspired, as is Ruffian, 10% melee damage for you and allies in coherency. Also just an Ogren talent already. So I would have liked to see something more interesting, but we did get that in Gunslinger Improved. Gunslinger Improved gives 10% of the ammo that an ally or you replenish when you pick up an ammo crate or an ammo pickup to everybody else within coherency. So if you've got 4 people and they're at an ammo crate, and say you are in like a Havoc 40, right, where ammo is reduced by 60%, well, someone who picks up a pickup of ammo will get 40% of their supply back, and that means they'll give 4% to everybody else in the team. And then if everybody else does it, everybody else will end up with a total of 16% extra ammo gained versus the 40% they were going to get. Normally they'll get 56%, which is a nice little increase, and it should help to alleviate some ammo pressure. You can be like the pseudo veteran on the team who's providing a little extra ammo, and this class does not use very much ammo at all if you're going for the ranged build. Okay, so we're going past that. We've got long lasting for 5 seconds stim duration. Very, very solid talent. Stims are crazy. We'll get to them in just a second, obviously. But stims, you definitely want 5 seconds of stim. That's great. And you know what else is great? Blessed stims. Blessed Stims gives you, while stimmed, killing blows clear 1% corruption up to 50% per stim. I want you to note that right there, that does not say from the current wound. That means that if you take it down and you now have one of your 2 wounds corrupted, right? If you get a single kill while you are stimmed, you will clear 1% of your corruption from that last wound, and now you can get downed again without dying because you do not have a full corrupted wound. That is really, really excellent for this class because this class can take some downs. This is also like a great way to keep that corruption off of you when you're playing in difficulties like Havoc, where enemies' melee hits corrupt your health directly. It can get rid of things like Burgle Slime and Burster Explosions. All that corrupting effects can be removed with this, and it's very, very potent to be able to keep your health bar clear of corruption at all times. Down here, we got some abilities, guys. Let's start to talk abilities. Let's first start with Enhanced Desperado. I just call it Desperado. Desperado is the ranged ability, and the ranged ability here is very powerful. When you activate this, you get 10 seconds base that give you immunity to all range attacks, sprinting costs no stamina, and you get 30% sprint speed, which looks something like this. Yeah, we're fast as fuck, boy. Like, we are crazy fast. Now, you'll note that when I'm in this, I'm getting this highlight on nearby enemies. First of all, I love this. I want this effect to be added to just kind of like, honestly, the base game in some way, shape, or form. I find it so hard to track enemies in Darktide a lot of times because it's just so muddy and the shapes are not very clear. I feel like having that to help those of us who might be slightly visually impaired would be a great accessibility option, but that's neither here nor there. This is just a really cool ability because when that is active, those close quarters enemies, the ones that are highlighted in blue, every time you kill one, it adds 3 seconds back to that 10-second clock. The clock cannot go above 10 seconds, so from any point, you can only last for 10 seconds without claiming a kill, but it is very easy to stack up those kills and get that timer maxed back out at 10 seconds. And you can extend it 3 seconds up to 20 times, so that's a full minute of extension if you're killing once every 3 seconds. And then after that, it doesn't go away, but it instead becomes diminished. I have stayed in this ability for up to 3 minutes or more. It is very, very easy, especially if there's lots of elites in your level, if you're playing on a higher difficulty, just to stay in there all ding-dong day. And that is great because you're completely immune to range attacks, so you can be the team leader who just runs out in the middle of the open, straight into all the gunners, and just starts shooting them point blank in the face. And it is very, very funny. This only has a 30-second base cooldown too, so you are going to be back in it pretty quickly. You can usually hit that loop and be back in action, running and gunning, no problem, within a couple seconds. The most important part of this ability, arguably though, is the fact that when it's active, reloading your weapon doesn't take any ammo. It doesn't take anything from your reserve. So that means that, I could just waste all the ammo in the world with my Shredder auto pistol here, which absolutely slaps in this class, by the way. And then when I reload, it doesn't actually take any ammo. So I can use, 10, 20 mags for free during one ultimate, and I will not consume any ammo for my team. And this is why this class is pretty damn ammo self-sufficient. It's because if you're going for a range build, you're going to have this active 90% of the time. And then it means that sometimes you can shoot even while it's not active because you don't have to worry about consuming that ammo at all. For augments here, it has weak points in the armor, the one you definitely should take, 15% rending while this is active, and they stack up to 15% range damage from killing the highlighted enemies, which you will very easily do. So 15% range damage and then 15% rending while this is active, which will last for a long time. The one you probably shouldn't take is Focus Resolve. This will cut 5 seconds off of your cooldown, but we really don't care too much about that because the cooldown is only 30 seconds to start with. This is only 1/6 off your cooldown. Definitely not worth a node, and also definitely not worth it when we consider some other cooldown options we have for the class. Let's go on and check out our second ability, the melee ability, Rampage. Rampage is another 10-second ability. And during this duration, you gain 100% melee power, 20% attack speed, 25% damage reduction, and you are stun and suppression immune. So you just go into absolute berserk mode. While this is active, you can extend that 10-second duration by 0.1 seconds for each melee hit you do. And after 30 seconds of extension, you diminish that effect. This is just like Desperado, where you cannot extend the timer over the initial 10 seconds, but you can just continually refresh it for a long time. The problem with this ability, or the downside of this ability, even though it is super strong, is when you come out of it, you are going to have 25% increased damage taken and less stamina regeneration speed for that 5-second window there. I haven't ever felt like that was what got me killed or anything. Generally, when your rampage ends, there's no more enemies around you anyway. You murdered everything, so I wouldn't be super worried about that. 30-second base cooldown and a pretty damn solid ability. This allows you to pump some serious damage. I mean, like, this level of damage, like insta-kill, like, wait, hold on, we can do better than that. Oh, we got a stim. We're not getting crits. That's what our problem was. We didn't get any crits. Here we go. Let's do some demonstrations. Yeah. Yeah, there we go. All right, yeah. And this is like, 20% of full power, I feel like, because I'm not all stacked up on my stims. But yeah, that is a very, very powerful melee ability and just enables you to go absolutely ham with every single melee weapon in the game. Over here, we've got Channel Regression. I don't think this is a very good talent or very, very good modifier. Heavy attacks gain 25% rending while your duration of your rampage is above 50%. First of all, there's too many qualifiers here. Rending, so first of all, you have to only use a heavy attack for rending, which only applies to one enemy, really. Well, it's this guy, and the headshot on this guy, and the headshot on that guy, right? Those are the only enemies that really care about rending in terms of increasing the damage against them. It's also only 25%, which is not that great, and then you have to be above 50% duration here. So this is not that good in a couple different ways. Too many qualifiers to make it usable. However, Boiling Blood is a guaranteed take. You will take this every single time you run this ability. If you melee strike an elite or a monster, you extend the duration of Rampage by a full second rather than that 0.1 second it normally does. And this also makes it so that you can extend it by up to 40 seconds before this effect is diminished. This allows you to stay in this ability so much longer, and again, it will be up way more when you are in combat in higher difficulties. Over here, we've got Forge's Bellow, which is a utility for this perk, where when you are activating or coming out of this ability, you'll stagger everything around you and make their delay between their attacks 50% longer for 5 seconds. So a good little utility. You will still knock everything back when you activate this ability in the first place, though, so don't don't get it twisted that is still good. Also notably, this ability has a full toughness refill when it's activated, which it does not state anywhere in the tooltip. So yeah, that's pretty cool, because sometimes this class definitely needs to get its toughness back. The other almost guaranteed pickup here is Pulverizing Strikes. 50% cleave while Rampage is active. 50% cleave is really good on its own, and you might want this with a lot of weapons, but additionally, you gain 5% melee strength for every second spent with the ability active up to 10 times. So even if you don't extend it at all, you're going to cap out at 50% melee strength for that last second. But as I mentioned before, you're going to extend this ability if you're in combat up to a minute, perhaps even longer. And this is insane. 50% melee strength on top of the 100% melee strength that we get over here. All right, so that is the two abilities that are handled. The last one we have to talk about is Stim Supply. Stim Supply is going to be a little bit of a complex topic that we'll dig into in a second when we talk about the stims after we get through the rest of this tree, but I just want to lay out the base premises of it first and show you what its power is. So, you place a retrofitted meta crate on the ground, bolstering you and your allies. Operatives that breathe the crate's gas heal up to 40 corruption over time and become immune to it. So you cannot be corrupted while you're in this under the effect of this crate, and it removes corruption. Again, it does not say from the current wound, it says all corruption. So you can remove this and you can get your team to have more available downs, or to be able to be healed more by med crates, which is really, really good. That's a very, very good effect even on its own. Even if it didn't do anything else, that would honestly be a pretty viable effect. It would make you like the only healer in the game. But additionally, this will grant a copy of the stim that you currently have equipped. Now, in my testing, this does not work with any of the stims in the game. It only works with the custom cocktail stims. I am really hoping they add that effect, because otherwise there's literally no reason in the world that you would ever use a in-game stim versus using a custom stim at all, ever, with any build, because the in-game or the custom stims are just better point blank than any in-game stims are, and they have the potential to do lots of different things as well. So this copies that effect and disperses it to everyone that stands in its radius. The downside of that is that this is, oh sorry, wrong ability. It's a pretty small radius, right? You have to stand pretty dang close to get it to have any effect. The counter to that problem is that it has these nodes right here. So the first one is ease of assembly. When your stim becomes available, which as of time of publishing, this stim has a duration of 20 seconds. You see that a green fog on the outer edge of the screen there. And then after that, it'll go on cooldown for 30 seconds. So basically, this is saying that you have a 50-second additional cooldown timer that will also reset the cooldown on your stim supply there. So you've got two different timers that are ticking, which is pretty dang cool. Then over here, we've got Shifty Craftsmanship. This is going to turn this into a landmine that, as you saw a second ago, it staggers enemies. So it actually is a pretty unique tool for bursting in enemies' faces. It applies 5 stacks of chem toxin. This is a lot, guys. Like, look how much damage this does to these enemies right here. I'm going to put it down in their presence. It explodes after the duration expires, and 5 stacks of chem toxin is some actual serious damage. So yeah, nothing to shake a stick at. It'll definitely wipe out a good chunk of a horde. The problem is that you had to wait for this to expire, but the counter to that, and the one know that you will take every time you take this ability for forever, is Huff and Go. Huff and Go makes the duration of it actually being present only last 3 seconds, but the effects linger for 15 seconds on your character after you leave the area. So simply everybody on the team needs to touch this circle within the 3 seconds that it's active, and you will get that effect on your character no matter where you go for the next 15 seconds, which means you're cleansing your corruption, which means you're stimmed for 15 seconds with one of those various effects, which is awesome. And yeah, that is a like game breaking kind of sort of, because it also has perfect synergy with Shifty Craftsmanship, enabling it to detonate after only 3 seconds instead of the normal like 20 seconds. All right. From there, let's go down here and through these minor nodes, Toxin Strength, Melee Damage, and Critical Chance Boost, and talk about this bottom left tree down here. This is the crit slash range slash... Actually, honestly, a lot of these are very... they are very versatile in terms of what you choose, although this is the range keystone and this is the melee keystone, and this is the toxin keystone. But let's go ahead and check this one out. We've got ammo jack here, 15% clip size rounded up. That means that we can get triple barrel shotgun. Let's go ahead and showcase that right here. Triple barrel shotgun. Yeah, yeehaw. Now there is something else I'll showcase with this in just a second, so let's get ourselves warmed up for that. We also have quick and deadly, 15% close range damage for 2 seconds after a successful dodge. Cool. And then over here, a very, very cool talent that I love a lot, Swift Endurance. 2% increased melee attack speed for each current stamina. So think about this, guys. Each class has a base stamina value. I think that this class probably has 2 or 3 base stamina, depends on the class you're playing. And that stamina value is counted in addition to the melee weapon that you're holding. And each of those stamina points is being converted to 2% attack speed. So for instance, for a weapon like the dagger here, you get 1 additional stamina plus whatever your class has. Let's say for sake of argument, this class has 2 stamina base. We're going to get an extra 1 here. So we're sitting at 3 stamina. And that means that we have 6% attack speed just for having the knife equipped and for being the Hive Scum. Okay. Now we swap over to a weapon like the Bone Saw or the Crowbar here, and we inspect it. It has 4.5 stamina. So add that to our class's base. Now we have 6.5 stamina, and then you can put the stamina perk blessing on there, and that brings you to 8.5 stamina. That is converted into 16% melee attack speed, which is huge. And then you go fucking crazy and you swap out all of your curios for stamina curios. So you get 9 extra stamina for a total of 18% extra melee attack speed here. Add that here, 34% melee attack speed, guys. We are bonking enemies at freaking light speed with this crowbar, just like all over them all day, because they just can't keep up with the speed that we are swinging our weapon at. And that's crazy because the crowbar is normally kind of a slow weapon because it has a lot of stagger, and this enables you to just like go hard with the attacks, and also channel heavies, which are normally pretty slow as well. So yeah, really cool talent. I love that it enables you just to trade off a ton of your defense for a ton of offense. Great design. Good job, Patrick. Sweet Spot, weak spot damage. Cool. Hypercritical, another like bonkers talent. This is maybe one of the most bonkers talent in the tree, barring one other one we'll look at. Critical strikes instantly kill human-sized enemies if their current health is less than 2 times the amount of the damage of the critical strike. So basically, just to put this in simple terms, if you crit an enemy and you take at least half their health, half of what their remaining health is with the crit, they instantly die like that. And this becomes easier and easier to do the more crit chance you have, obviously. So weapons like this tack axe, which have high crit values, can do it pretty easy. And it becomes easier and easier the more damage you do, obviously. So eventually you'll get to the point where you just hit a something like a mauler here. Let's hit this mauler and just instantly kill him. Oh, we didn't crit. If I hit crit, my crit isn't stacked up. Sorry, guys. But yeah, there we go. So we can just instantly kill a mauler, no problem at all. And yeah, that is a very powerful talent. And it seems like it also, because it executes like that, instantly kills them, it doesn't make them get in the way in terms of hit mass for your cleave, which is pretty cool too. Over here, we've got Pickpocket. This is the one I wanted to showcase earlier. Pickpocket gives you 20% of your ammo reserve back if you have less than 20% left. I don't actually know if this applies to the reserve, like the actual reserve capacity, but what it does apply to is your current magazine. So you can do stuff like this, where you can endlessly shoot the last shot in your shotgun because you're below 20% and it refills it instantly. And that applies, works best with weapons like this, which are single shot. So this or like a revolver work really well with it. But you can also get good effect out of this with like auto gun because you'll replenish, you know, 10 or so bullets when you get that kill. So that's pretty cool as well. Right, nice little fun thing you could do there. Then down here we've got unload. Reloading your ranged weapon gives you 5 seconds of 2% range damage, and each 10% of your mag spent here gives you an additional 2%. So you can cap this out at additional 20% range damage, but you have to dump your entire mag within 5 seconds. There's a lot of guns on this class that can definitely do that. So, but the slower firing the gun, the less of its mag it can dump, the less effective this is going to be. And then over here, we've got ramping backstabs. Repeated backstabs on a target increase power by 10% for each attack up to 5 times. The hardest part about this is that, yeah, it's really hard to hit the same target over and over and over and have them not die because this class does so much damage. And then you also have to get backstabs here, which is just like, man, it's going to be hard to do unless you got an ogre on your team, even with reduced threat and stuff like that, because enemies are all over the place. So I don't really love this talent super a lot. Just because, like, yeah, the only thing you're going to be really doing this against is bosses for any real damage. Down here, we got Vulture's Mark. This is the range keystone. And here's my first complaint about this class's talent tree. Well, no, this was my first complaint, but this is another complaint I have. Vulture's Mark is, and Adrenaline Frenzy over here, they are too focused on being only for ranged and only for melee, respectively. I wish they were more open-ended that allowed you to go with either, because it limits your options in terms of what you're going to choose, right? So when you're going for a range build, you're not going to choose this one because this is for melee. You're going to choose either this one or this one. That is the downside here. But it's a pretty good keystone. Killing a special elite enemy with a ranged weapon guarantees you a stack of Vulture's Mark for 8 seconds, stacking 3 times. Each stack grants 5% range damage, 5% critical strike chance, and 5% move speed. And at max stacks, special elite range kills restore 15% toughness to you and allies in coherency. So the really notable thing about a lot of these keystones is that they are, this one and this one are the way that you get your toughness back outside of being, you know, the other like 2 ways that you can in the entire tree. Notice that so far there's been almost no mention of regaining toughness. And fortunately, we do have a way to get 15% of toughness back here by killing specials and elites with this thing. Now, this can stack up to 3 times. Those are some pretty decent buffs. And then down here, we've got Vulture's Push. This basically means that if you kill a ranged, or sorry, if you kill an elite or special with a ranged attack, it'll do a shockwave around you personally on your character that knocks back all enemies. So if you got a bulwark right in your face, you can't get past, you turn around and you shoot a gunner behind you, well, that'll knock him back, knock his shield wide open, and you can fall up and blast his face. Then we got Vulture's Dodge here. Range crits grants immunity to all attacks for 1 second. This is kind of redundant with our Enhanced Desperado being active up here because you have immunity to range attacks here, but this can give you immunity to all attacks, meaning you can just walk up to a Crusher and just watch as he can do nothing against you. Works very well with weapons like the Shredder Auto Pistol because this weapon has a really like easy time hitting a very high crit rate and constantly pumping out those crits every 1 second. Over here, extending Vulture's Mark from 8 seconds to 12 seconds. Pretty decent, although the higher in terms of difficulty you get, the better, or the worse this is going to be because you'll have more elites and specials to target in the first place, so you won't be worried about keeping those stacks. Let's go to the middle tree here. Punching above one's weight, 15% damage against elites and monsters. Pretty much an automatic pickup in most builds, just a nice solid clip of damage. Tis but a scratch, also a very solid pickup. Maybe like the most prevalent in terms of toughness regeneration in the entire tree. 50% toughness over 6 seconds after taking range toughness damage. Losing all toughness, however, cancels the effect. So the balance here is that you need to make certain that you aren't losing all of your toughness. It's very easy to do that. And while that's going on though, like, you know, you can get tickled by gunners or, you know, just little shooters, and those enemies will give you a regenerative effect. They'll regenerate 50% over 6 seconds, which isn't a small amount. It's like 8.5% or something like that, right? So not too bad in terms of regenerative effect, and this can be boosted by certain other things in the tree. The problem is not getting your toughness completely annihilated by gunners, which is very hard on higher difficulties. So I honestly end up taking things like gunner damage resistance here because those gunners now can shoot me without breaking my toughness instantly, and then I can regenerate in their faces. Over here, we've got another way to prevent our toughness getting broken, which is Burst of Energy. You gain stun immunity for 6 seconds and restore 50% of your toughness when your toughness is broken with a 15-second cooldown. So not bad at all. This class does have a hard time sustaining toughness. Your toughness is going to get broken from time to time, and this will save you with a 15-second cooldown. So yeah, we like that. That can be pretty good. This would be like garbage on pretty much any other class, but here it's quite valuable. Battering strikes, melee killing blows grant 10% melee cleave for 5 seconds, stacking 5 times. Not bad, right? Except for we have 50% cleave up here already, which you're almost definitely going to take. Battering momentum, hitting 4 or more enemies with a single attack grants 50% cleave for your next attack. There's not a whole lot of weapons on this class that do a lot of cleaving, like the crowbar can, I guess, but I am not sold on this being a good talent at all, because 4 or more enemies is a lot of enemies to hit, first of all, especially without cleave to start. Over here, Hive City Brawler. 15% damage reduction, or if you start to lose a lot of stamina, you get up to 15% melee damage. So we can either get damage reduction or damage increase depending on if we have full stamina or reduced, almost entirely spent stamina. Pretty neat talent, and it's a good damage reduction talent. And then Hyper Violence, perhaps the most broken talent. No, that's going to go Stim Supply up here, but Hyper Violence is incredibly good. Killing blows grant 25% of the difference between the damage dealt by your attack and the health of the enemy, of the killed enemy, as melee damage for 3 seconds. So, yeah, just to give you some perspective on what that looks like, we would do something like this, where we like stim ourselves up, and we would just kill a target. Let's go ahead and kill a target real good. Let's kill him real good, and then we would go over here and be like, oh, if I could actually hit the hit. Where's the other gunner? Oh, there he is. There he is. Okay. Hold on, guys. Hold on, guys. We're gonna do it big. All right, there we go. Boom, there we go. So that's what it allows you to do, right? It just takes that damage that you just did, or that you overkilled the enemy for, and just carries it over. And it carries it for 3 seconds as well, so you can just go around and start just blatting all sorts of things. You hit like a dog or something, and then you just turn on the boss and explode them for the next 3 seconds, because it takes 25% of the overkill damage. If you have an enemy that you just happen to get pretty low in terms of their HP, like this, and then you do a huge fucking wallop that would do like 4,000 damage, well, you just added 1,000 plus flat damage to your weapon, and then that gets multiplied. Configure this, or take this into account, plus hypercritical here, where you're going to execute an enemy if they go below that half point thresholds, which also gets added to that damage. So these two together goes insane, because you just get this huge pool of additive damage because you executed an enemy from a very high HP. It's like a massive damage tick that you did, and then it just like allows you to blow up everything else that you turn on. And this just continues to print and print and print. So you'll see in clips of my gameplay of the build that I'm going to be putting out today, you'll see me just go into a horde and start chopping little enemies. A crusher will walk up and try to attack me, and I'm just like, and he's just dead. He's just out of there. You're like, okay, you're done, bud. Like, you don't even get to play the game. So yeah, this is a crazy talent. I wouldn't be surprised to see it get nerfed, honestly, but hey, let's not jinx it just yet. It's definitely not the most broken thing in the game, because we've still got to talk about Stim Supply. But yeah, you can do like this. And that's not even like, you know, that's not even that bad in terms of how silly it can get once you're fully charged up. Light attack crusher to death in 2 hits. All right, let's go on from there. We're down here with Adrenaline Frenzy, which is our melee exclusive keystone. Melee hits grant you a stack of adrenaline. Critical melee hits grant +1 additional stack. Not gaining a stack within 2 seconds will remove a stack instead. At 12 stacks, you remove all stacks and gain Adrenaline Frenzy. So this Adrenaline Frenzy effect gives you 10% attack speed and 25% melee damage lasting 10 seconds, which isn't a bad effect at all. Then we have like these modifiers down here that can give us additional like ways to gain those points. So right here we can get an additional stack of adrenaline for getting a weak spot hit, but you don't get any on just regular hits. Over here we get an additional hit for killing below, and killing an elite gives you 4 additional stacks, but non-killing blows grant none. I also don't think these are that valuable, because the normal melee hit giving 1 and a crit melee hit giving 2 is just better than both of these, right? Because we are going to get so many crits and so many normal hits anyway that, yeah, these are just going to be way easier to stack without this. Down here we've got increasing the duration of that Adrenaline Frenzy to 15 seconds from 10, which isn't bad. It gives you additional time to stack this back up and trigger it again, so you're going to be in it much more often, if not always. Then down here, increasing the duration of adrenaline to 4 seconds, probably not necessary, right? When you're actually in combat and building up stacks, you only need to get 12 stacks. So if you get 6 crits, you have capped that 12 stacks. You did it. And it's very, very easy. As you just saw from the build that I'm running currently, it would be very easy to cap this out. No problemo. And then down here in the center, Adrenaline Unbound. While Adrenaline Frenzy, you replenish 4 toughness each second. I have not been able to test this properly. It's very hard to tell because I just don't have my mods to like actually test this properly in the Psychanium. I don't know if this is supposed to say 4%. It would only make sense to me if it's 4%. I couldn't tell what was going on in game because I didn't have a timer. And of course, there's no numeric freaking UI. So yeah, like it's just not very easy to interpret. But yeah. This is a regenerative effect for toughness on a class that otherwise doesn't regenerate toughness, so it's probably the selling point of this. You get some nice damage buffs, and you would go here and just get toughness each second. Not too bad. All right, coming over into our final tree, and the one that we are going to spend a little bit of time on, and then we're going to talk about Stimms, guys. We have Potent Tox up here, and then Loose Formation, a talent that you're never going to take. 50% coherency radius, boo. Then here, extra pouches, blitz charge, 1 extra blitz charge. Insane, right? Even on any of the blitzes, this is the best possible thing to get. This bumps your blackout to 6 grenades cap from 5. This bumps Boombringer, the rocket launcher, to 4 from 3, and it bumps chem grenades to 4 from 3 as well. Definitely take this. Always take this. This is so good. This is a very, very solid blitz there. Then over here, we've got Coded Weaponry, which gives melee attacks infect enemies with 1 stack of Chem Toxin. You know, 1 stack of Chem Toxin doesn't do a whole lot of damage, but it does trigger other effects, which is going to be very important in just a second. Down here, we've got Sample Collectors, literally just a second, by the way. Sample Collector, killing blows replenish 1% of your Stim cooldown. Killing Chem Toxin infected enemies instead replenishes 2%. So there you go, right? Normally, the cooldown is 30 seconds for this Stim, but this will lower it by 0.3 seconds every time that you get a killing blow. Sorry, yeah, that's right, 0.3. Yeah, that would be right. 0.3 seconds for a killing blow, or 0.6 seconds every time you get a killing blow and they're infected with Stim or Toxin, which is going to be pretty often because if they survive 1 hit, they can be coded and then you'll kill them in the second. But if you're killing them 1 hit, you're just getting 1%. Over here, Pocket Toxin, another crazy node. In fact, I should redo my talent tree a little bit here so that I can get that as well, because that is just so good. I'm going to do this. I'm going to take that out, I think. Yeah, that and go there. This is a really, really good node. Pocket Toxin makes your Blitz explosions infect enemies with 5 stacks of Chem Toxin. Works extremely well with Chem Grenade. Also works really well with Blackout here because you just get this free little pocket sand you can throw out. Also, by the way, consider that it is called Pocket Toxin. They had to have known they were going to do the pocket sand combo, right? And throw that at enemies' faces and then poison their eyes out. So pretty solid little talent there. We then have Toxin Mania, 2% base damage for each chem infected enemy nearby, up to 25%. My problem with this is that Chem Toxin kills enemies so quickly that it's oftentimes not going to be present on enemies for very long at all. Just as like a case study in that, if I threw this grenade right here at these 4 enemies, like this is going to give me 8%. I'll have 8% base damage while these enemies are alive, but now I have 6-2, and then now I have 2%, right? So, like, it's gonna give you damage while these enemies are infected, but because the toxin just goes ahead and kills them very quickly, you just generally don't get that buff for very long at all. So I just don't think this is a very good talent. Now, if this worked instead like Acrid's Toxin from Risk of Rain 2, where it could poison them and take them down to 1 HP but not kill them, it would be insane, because then you could always guarantee that you're getting Sample Collector. You could always guarantee that Toxin Mania would be stacked up even when you're not finishing off kills. Then Targeted Toxin over here is also very interesting. Enemies you infect with Chem Toxin deal 25% less damage, and monsters deal 50% less, which is pretty cool. So that means that if you're just taking this and meleeing enemies, they're not going to hurt you for nearly as much. Not too bad, right? Especially if you're a like an artillerist who's out here fucking throwing their pocket sand at enemies and poisoning them, or using your bombs here, you can poison those enemies and make them do less damage to your team. And then down here, Toxic Renewal, another way to get some toughness back. Replenish 15% toughness when an enemy infected by Chem Toxin is killed by a melee attack. So basically, they have to be infected first, and then you can follow up with a melee attack. Very potent, but as a reminder, right, like it is hard to get both, like to have those enemies infected and then kill them. But honestly, I should probably be doing that like this, right? Something like that. I'm refining this build as we go along, guys. So look for this to see this on the channel in a second. But yeah, very, very good replenishment node, and there's not many of those in the tree, as we found. So then over here, we have our final keystone, which is chemical dependency. Using a stim grants you a stack of dependency for 90 seconds. For each stack, gain minus 15% ability cooldown reduction up to 3 max stacks, which decay 1 at a time. So just make certain that you are using your stim on cooldown, and you're going to build up those stacks of dependency, which can cap out at 3 unless you take maxed out chems, which makes this duration of your dependency only last 60 seconds, but instead you are going to have 4 max stacks for a total of minus 60% ability cooldown reduction, which is really, really good, guys. That means that when you come out of Rampage, you are going to have, instead of having the 30-second duration to wait, you're instead going to have something on the order of like what it'd be like 13 seconds or so once it's fully stacked out at 4 stacks. But perhaps the more important part there is these two down here, Chem Fortified, which can give you 50% of your toughness back when you use a stim. That's all right, but the more important probably thing is that you get 5% toughness damage reduction for each stack of dependency. So that's 20% toughness damage reduction if you're running maxed out chems. And then finally, the coolest one of all, 10% crit chance when you have for each stack of dependencies. So if you've got maxed out chems here, we get 60% cooldown reduction and 40% crit. This is the best keystone in the class. I'm just going to go ahead and say it right there. You'll see a lot of my builds using it, because who doesn't want 40% crit and 60% cooldown reduction? I think the answer is pretty much nobody. So this keystone is just very, very powerful right now. It's very easy to keep that up, and it gives you a reason to remember to use your freaking stims, guys, because yeah, they're good. And with that being said, I think it's time to go over and look at the stims, and then we'll bounce back and talk about what it is that makes Stim Supply the most broken ability the game has ever seen. Guys, the Stimm Lab, here it is. So the Stimm Lab, you gain 1 talent point for every point you gain, for every level you gain, rather. And what that means is that as you go along these paths, the cost goes up. So at level 1, you'll be able to pick 1 point. At level 2, you won't be able to pick another one because you got to get to level 3. So it goes up to cost of 2, cost of 3, cost of 4, and cost of 5. And each of these paths has a different base stat, and then it is diversified at the end. So up here, we've got our defense tree, which means that we're going to get toughness regen and minus percentage damage taken, which is very strong. So this is going to affect all toughness regeneration effects. So for instance, when I have this stim going and I have 75% additional toughness regeneration, all of my toughness regenerating effects, such as this, like this right here, 15% toughness gain, will be multiplied. I'll get 175% of that effect, right? That's pretty cool. Once you get all the way up here, you can choose one of two things, either 25% more toughness regeneration, or you can choose to replenish a flat 25% toughness. If you choose all of them this way and then come down here, you'll actually refill your toughness to full, because this will double your toughness regeneration, and then these two together will give you 50% of your toughness. So you'll instantly cap to full, although this path here would give you more toughness generation over time for the duration. And these nodes here also give you that minus percentage damage taken, so this path will give you minus 16% damage taken, which is pretty strong to take less damage. Down here we have our attack speed, sort of a blue stim type tree. We've got 5% attack speed with 25% weapon swap speed, so we're swapping back and forth really quickly. And then out here we can diversify into one of 3 paths. We can either go to the melee, I would say this is probably like the melee, fencing fighter tier or tree, where we've got stun immunity, slowdown immunity, and attack speed flat. Up here we've got movement speed, dodge distance, dodge speed, dodge recovery, making yourself very fast and nimble. And right here we've got the ranged attack tree, plus 50% reload speed and minus 50% recoil. I love using this one in my range setup here, because this thing is going to allow me to snap those bullets back in my mag and keep firing, which means I get more bullets out during the duration of my Desperado. Up here we've got the strength tree, which just gives you flat strength, but when you get out here, we can diversify. We can choose either 25% additional crit chance and 10% additional strength. We can choose 35% finesse, which is good when you already have enough crit going, or 15% rending, if you just need that armor pen to carry over. And yeah, so nice strength up there, nice way to just spend some points. And then finally, perhaps most brokenly of all, and I don't know if this something is going to get changed here, guys, right? Something has to get nerfed and changed because this is the cooldown tree. And those of you who understand cooldown and have been following along so far might understand the problems with this. So this is going to give us 25% cooldown. So right here, we're doubling our cooldown. If you go to here, you'll gain an extra 100% cooldown for triple your cooldown reduction. These two nodes give you, I believe this is a multiplicative effect. So you'll get double cooldown here, and then this will double that. So you'll have 400% cooldown for 1 second with a melee killing blow while this is active, or 400% with a range killing blow while this one is active, or 300% just passively chilling out. And with that being said, we can go back and check out a very, very broken build, which is this right here. This is a build that I will also be being uploaded alongside this, because I don't think that this build is going to make it to the live game. I think this build is comically broken, and I mean that in the like just actually broken sense of the term, not in the infinite smite sense of the term. This build can make you invincible, because what it does is, since we have this extra cooldown on our stim, and then we have the talents of stim supply, we can apply cooldown to ourselves with our stim supply, and our stim can apply cooldown to us. And our chemical dependency using a stim can reduce our cooldown. So effectively, this ends up doing something like this, where we can stim, throw down our cooldown crate, and look at our cooldown. Now, this will take a few minutes to set up, and if you want to see a funnier version of this, you can go and check it out in my build guide, but we can actually fast forward this by just doing some stuff here. We're just going to take this out real quick. That'll reset our stim. We're going to put it back in. Reset our stim again. And we're going to do it one more time. Reset our stim one last time. Okay. All right, here we are. So now we're like effectively what is full power, right? We're stimmed up, and now we can drop our crates. And now watch what will happen with the timers on our crates as we continue to do this. Because these effects last for 15 seconds after you leave the area of the crate, it doesn't matter that they explode. Our cooldown continues to increase at a kind of an exponential rate. So yeah, this just goes faster and faster and faster. And with each of these buffs, remember that on the defense side of the tree, we are stacking 16% reduced damage taken. So once you have a certain critical mass of these buffs on your bar, which you can see them all down there in the bottom, you are immune to all damage. And imagine that how busted that is for a single character. Also note that this is killing all these enemies around me because these are exploding, but this can also be applied to every member of your team. So yeah, and if you have a second person on your team doing this, they can make you stack both of your crates faster because you're sharing cooldown with each other and you're sharing invincibility with each other. So if you want to see myself and First Tier Guardsman soloing a Havoc, or sorry, duoing a Havoc 40 with this build, you can check out that build, which is on the channel. And I pray to God that every day this does not make it into the live game, because it will absolutely ruin the fun for everybody. Even though it is fun and silly right there, it just makes the game invalid and it's unplayable. But it is something to note and be aware of. Anyway, guys, that is everything for the talent tree for the class. Overall thoughts, this is a very, very different class than what I think most people thought it was going to be. It is a ton of fun to play because it really does bring out your best skill. You have to be on top of your game. You have to be playing and actively aware at every single moment. Or else the game is going to get you. It's going to pounce on you when you're vulnerable. You have to just be active and be playing, and it encourages you to be dodgy and evasive and maneuver and position and tactically engage. And there's so many cool things you can do with the weapons, which won't be in this video, but I'll put out a video soon showcasing all the weapons. Each one of this class's unique weapons has something really, really cool going for it that I think they really cooked with this set of weapons. I can't wait to see what they come up with next in terms of other classes or even more weapons for the existing classes. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining me. If you haven't yet and you watched this far, you are truly a legend, and you should definitely be subscribed because you somehow tolerated me this long. Again, thanks for watching and hanging out. I'll see you real soon. Mystery out. Bye-bye.